Do I, 25F, have a right to be mad at my roommates 25F and 24F for being bad friends, 25F in particular, and not helping clean up? Hi there. I am a 26-year-old female and I moved into a house with an old friend who is 25 years old and her friend who is 24 years old back in October. Let's refer to my friend, 25 years old, as R and the other roommate, 24 years old, as D. Also, trigger warning for the following: sexual assault, self-harm, suicidal ideation, eating disorders, grooming. R and I met in the 8th grade after I transferred schools because a neighbor submitted an application for an academic magnet program, and since I was accepted, I decided to go. This change also allowed me to escape bullying related to my weight and being generally eccentric. I have since been formally diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder level 1, so the social challenges make sense in hindsight. For context, I weighed 200 pounds at the age of 11. I grew up in a setting that was both privileged and neglectful. My parents were not emotionally present. My father suffered from severe mental illness, and I suspect he was also undiagnosed autistic, leading me to develop harmful coping strategies out of the belief that I could not ask for help, and that no one would care even if I did. Consequently, prior to transferring schools, I developed an eating disorder, lost 100 pounds, and engaged in self-harm. I was in a poor state, I still am, but I have always been painfully aware of this and have worked hard as an adult to address it. It is my greatest source of shame and something I dislike most about myself. This will become relevant later. In retrospect, I believe R and I formed a trauma bond. She also battles mental health challenges. She has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and is truly making significant progress, and I am glad for her. She has even admitted to me that she is a much more improved person than she was previously, according to her own words. However, when we first met, both of us had similar negative coping mechanisms, leading us both to experience hospitalizations. I was admitted months after I transferred schools due to depression, placed on Prozac, and sent on my way. That summer before high school, my father tragically took his own life. The family van in which he died remained parked in our driveway for 8 years afterward, still bearing remnants of blood on the seat and seatbelt. My mother never inquired about how my brothers and I felt about having to walk past that every day, forcing us to pretend as if it did not exist. Consequently, I was heavily dissociated for years. My eating disorder and self-harm worsened, but I immersed myself in academics, theater, and the music program at the high school we both attended, as it fed from the school where we first met. I am uncertain if remaining at that school was beneficial or detrimental at the time. The academic pressure was immense. R ended up transferring schools during her sophomore year, and I do not blame her for doing so. But I managed to temporarily lose myself and my pain, experiencing some confidence in the musical theater program. Music was the one thing I consistently excelled at, and that period of workaholism probably saved my life, despite my numerous suicide attempts during that time. The combination of music and academics motivated me to persist. I graduated with honors and worked diligently to gain admission to the best college possible. I achieved acceptance into my dream school and thought my future looked promising. R and I maintained our friendship even after she left the school we hung out, attended each other's graduations, and so forth. Unfortunately, I experienced a severe collapse. I was unprepared for the world's cruelty. I believed I had already faced all that during my childhood. Firstly, I was unaware that I was autistic. I had never received consistent support at that time concerning my father's condition, nor for the emotional turmoil I faced throughout my childhood and my struggles with my eating disorder, as the world treated me differently when I was thinner, as though I finally had value as a human being. I had to withdraw from college after just 1 semester. I returned home, worked for about a year, and thought I was prepared to return. Then came what I expected to be a fun 3-day camping trip before attempting college again, where I was sexually assaulted in a room filled with people I believed were friends. No one intervened, even while the incident unfolded before them. He continuously followed me throughout those 3 days, and all I can remember is crying and pleading with my friends. R was not present to help me escape his grasp. They acknowledged their discomfort with his actions but left me alone with him whenever he located me again. I began experiencing panic attacks, something I had never encountered before. Yet again, I attempted to persevere. I returned to the same school, only to crash and burn again, and was further groomed by an assistant manager at my workplace, who was twice my age. I was now 19. I dropped out once more and returned home in a state of actual catatonia, sitting on my mother's couch, barely able to move for 6 months, while finally undergoing intensive therapy with an extensive team of doctors, including transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. Slowly, I began to feel some semblance of better. And when I say better, I refer to the awareness that time continues regardless of my feelings. If I feel miserable, I have learned that the world remains indifferent. I must persevere, no matter how I feel. This persistent shame has driven me. I secured a job and performed reasonably well. I received a promotion just before the COVID-19 pandemic, but when we shut down, I had to confront others' anger. I appreciated the shutdown for providing a socially sanctioned opportunity to rest. My eating disorder resurfaced as I regained 200 pounds, and I felt ashamed of not wanting anyone to see me in that state due to how I was treated before. I understand that this mindset is toxic and irrational. However, I hope the context makes it comprehensible why I felt this way, even if it defies logical reasoning. During the lockdown, I lost considerable weight once again and attempted to rebuild my life. As society began to open up, I worked while attending community college and was doing marginally better. But again, better was merely in the sense I previously mentioned. No true sense of improvement, just the knowledge that the world is sink or swim. I live in the United States, where a majority of us must manage 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. So I juggled both full-time and part-time work while in school and finally felt somewhat stable enough to move out of my mother's home. I transferred from community college to a local university and excelled, making the dean's list every semester. However, I was extremely stressed, and it proved unsustainable. Then I was groomed by my actual boss, who was 41 years old when I was 24. Before you make jokes about daddy issues, I acknowledge that I know. It was dreadful, and I felt responsible for inviting this onto myself, resulting in my job loss. I began experiencing autistic meltdowns at work, and due to not fitting the stereotype of autism, I literally had a social worker tell me this before I received a formal diagnosis from someone who specializes in autism. Human resources did not believe me. At least I gleaned some positives from that terrible experience, as it shattered me. I fell into a toxic relationship with my roommate after that. We ended things a few months ago. I exerted considerable effort to push through. I did not want to leave school once more. However, I lasted another semester and a half before my mental state suffered due to the recent trauma. I struggled to maintain employment. While I continued to perform well academically, I felt as if I were barely holding on mentally. I began working in a funeral home because I was intrigued by the field, but in hindsight, I believe it was due to feeling dead inside. I ultimately had a confrontation with a coworker who consistently treated me rudely throughout our time together. When I finally confronted him, he responded, "You obviously have a lot of issues." No kidding. I know, and I despise it. I have been tirelessly working to change it for my entire life. Returning to R&D, I share this context because it encapsulates the past 8 years of my life constant failure and trauma. Yet, I persist in attempting to forge ahead, as I always have. I just left that toxic relationship and had to move back in with my mother since I was living with that partner. While residing there, many instances of physical abuse resurfaced from my childhood, leading to conflicts with my mother now that I have the strength to confront her about these issues as an adult. An autistic child should not be restrained to the ground by her father and older brothers while she screams, begging to be released, claiming she is in pain and struggling to breathe. An autistic child should not need to visit the emergency room for a tetanus shot because her brother literally bit her, drawing blood, and nearly breaking her arm. My mother possessed the power to prevent this and failed to act. Thus, I was upset about these matters, alongside the trauma associated with my father's vehicle. Anyway, R and Dtike's former roommate vacated the premises quite abruptly, and they urgently needed someone to move in, or they risked losing the house. R and I reconnected a bit a few months ago after a couple of years of silence. I had distanced myself from her because I felt she did not reciprocate the friendship. I never expressed this to R, so I acknowledged that it was my fault. But since I genuinely needed to move out of my mother's home, I chose to live with them. Upon arriving, I encountered a complete disaster. The dishwasher, washer, and dryer were all non-functional. Although fixing the dishwasher would only require a phone call, we have resorted to hand-washing dishes. You'd expect that my roommates would promptly wash and put away their dishes, yet they do not. We consistently have a pile of dishes in the sink, and I have tried discussing this with them politely. They continue to leave their dirty dishes, along with hairballs from their cats scattered across the floor and furniture. My best friend, who is truly my only genuine friend, was recently in town and came to see the place, subsequently returning on a different day to help me clean because the environment was repulsive. The previous roommate was experiencing personal struggles, a friend had recently passed away, and R&D were more focused on how difficult it was for her rather than cleaning up the mess she created. However, I recognized that if I did not clean it, no one else would. I will refer to the previous roommate as PP left the laundry room filled with soiled clothes from when her dog was ill. Therefore, my friend, whom I will call G, assisted me in cleaning up literal dog feces. We were gagging throughout the process. G helped me clean out every closet, disposed of old furniture in the shed, took out the recycling, and even aided me in renting an industrial carpet cleaner to deal with the stains and hairballs embedded in the rug. I have been gradually placing garbage bags of PTK's belongings into our trash for collection each week. R&D have never done so. For actual waste that I had to clean up from a time before I even lived here. To be fair, D had just injured her back, and R began helping when she observed G and me cleaning, but it genuinely felt like the only reason R stepped in was that it was someone other than me pointing out the problem. If G and I had not done it, it would not have been addressed. Why do I feel this way? I perceive myself as Artik's pity friend, if I can still even be considered a friend. Why do I say this? What prompted me to write this post is that I was quite candid with R&D about the possibility of moving back in with my mother. I am heavily in debt and exceedingly stressed, and after numerous job interviews, nothing has materialized. Thus, I am anxious, and I was crying to them about my situation. Somehow, the conversation shifted to dating, and I made a joke about being a manic pixie dream girl, prompting R to interject. Yeah, and you're actually seriously mentally ill and have issues. And while that is accurate, what I genuinely intended to express was, I am a person and not simply an extension of someone else. I have been unable to forget that remark. It truly hurt my feelings. I have been crying for the past few days because I feel as if no one genuinely cares or tries to comprehend the extent of my efforts simply to be recognized as a person. I have undergone years of therapy, exploring countless modalities, and tried more than 10 different combinations of psychiatric medication. Currently, I am taking 2 antidepressants, a mood stabilizer, anti-anxiety medication, and a stimulant for formally diagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I am aware that I have mental health challenges. That is no secret. I believe R may have made that comment as a joke or may have been referring to herself as well. However, I am unsure whether it was truly a joke. Regardless, I do not think we share the same emotional closeness at this point that would allow me to interpret it that way. I realize that I have not been as fun as I previously was, which I attribute to simply being less self-destructive outwardly. Since I moved in, she has scarcely included me in anything, despite R&D making plans and spending time together frequently. R met D after transferring from the high school we attended, and they have remained very close ever since. I mention this because I acknowledge that R and I will not share the same level of emotional intimacy as she has with D, especially given the significant time apart. However, we were once friends, and wouldn't you want to include your friend in activities if they were going through a tough time? I am grappling with this because I supported her during her struggles when we were younger. I sat with her as she experienced panic attacks during our outings. It is not as if she owes me that support, and I recognize this could be a toxic mindset since I was not acting out of a desire for something in return. Nevertheless, I cannot help but feel saddened that this social reciprocity appears absent. Perhaps I trauma dumped on her too often. I understand that this is a harsh reality, and maybe she simply does not want to engage with me any longer. If that is the case, I would prefer her to be upfront with me rather than express care yet treat me as if she does not. For instance, I do not intend to eavesdrop on conversations, but Dee tends to speak loudly, and I have overheard them discussing plans for a trip soon without me. The last time we all went out was a couple of months ago. I received a last-minute invitation to see a movie with R, D, and some other friends. They did not wait for me to obtain tickets, as the seats are numbered now, and R did not engage with me at all during the evening and chose not to sit beside me. I went to the bathroom and cried, contemplating leaving. I forced myself to return and asked Dee if we were not sitting together because they did not want me present, and she gave me a look suggesting I was insane. But how am I supposed to interpret that? Dee has honestly treated me better than R has within the 4 months I have been here, but even so, she does not comprehend where I am at emotionally. After the discussion about moving out, I conversed with Dee, and she essentially said, "Just push through, just keep going." I know she means well, but she does not understand how long I have been attempting to do just that, as I have been mentally struggling for nearly my entire life. Even R seemed to suggest that one day everything just clicked for her. It drives me to want to scream. This is not a competition for suffering, yet I continue to strive forward, and nothing ever improves. I have endured far more than either of them has. My choices contribute to that, yes, but much of it stems from very recent trauma. I feel utterly broken and shattered. I yearn for safety. I have never felt that I can truly feel safe. I have never had a group of genuine friends where I felt they genuinely cared about me, acknowledged my experiences, and recognized how hard I am trying. Humans need connection, and my desperate need for someone to truly see me has led me into grooming situations and toxic relationships. Just pushing through, without fulfilling the human necessity for loving and supportive relationships, has resulted in my eating disorder, self-harm through sexual activity, and suicidal attempts, although thankfully, I currently do not contend with suicidal thoughts as frequently as before. Anyway, I realize I have rambled for far too long. I have reached a point where I am considering moving out, but even that feels like leaping from one boiling pot into another, as the only option available to me is my mother's home. Please share your thoughts on whether I am being toxic. I could potentially be making all of this solely about myself, hence the expansive trauma background, when it may have nothing to do with me. Nevertheless, I feel like I am just screaming into the void for someone to recognize my suffering. I feel deeply hurt. I do not require inclusion in every single event. Just an invitation would mean the world to me right now. However, it is challenging to live under the same roof as someone who once was your friend, realizing that it seems as though we are no longer friends, while all I desperately desire is the comfort of people who I do not need to question regarding their care and safety. They have also faced issues with every single previous roommate, leading me to wonder if R and D might be the common link. Am I toxic, Reddit? I seek advice. Story 2. How do I tell my friends that I am feeling disregarded after a breakup? This was not the initial title of the post, but I kept getting moderated, so I will summarize it here, with a better title at the end. I have been feeling upset for months regarding 2 friends who stopped communicating with me in any meaningful manner after my breakup, and I am unsure how to address this with them without causing a major conflict. I have been contemplating posting something like this for some time, but I hesitated out of fear of it being discovered or of overreacting. However, I am so upset and lonely at this point that I really don't care anymore. I was in a relationship with someone, 19 non-binary, for 3 years. It was very serious, and I was somewhat convinced we would be together forever, which I now realize was naive, and I am regretting that. Clearly, we were not meant to be, and they ended our relationship in November. I was exceptionally distraught and required support, which I feel my friends did not provide adequately, and I want to express this to them and inquire whether they still wish to be friends with me. I have known friend A. Alex and my ex Carter since elementary school. They did not know each other well, as I was friends with each of them separately. My relationship with my ex deteriorated, and I grew very close to Alex, whom I considered my best friend. In high school, Carter and I reconnected and began dating. Alex introduced me to friend B. Bailey, and the two of them subsequently started dating. I occasionally invited Alex and Carter to hang out, and we had a great time. They were both my friends, and I initiated every single gathering. Once Bailey entered the picture, they were sometimes included in these hangouts, and we all became friends. When senior year arrived, all three of them decided to attend the same college while I chose a different one. Alex and Carter opted to be roommates, and I was happy for them. They hung out alone for the first time the summer before college, having never done so without me before. Their bond with each other was not as strong as it had been with me. When moving day came, everyone was upset and crying, saying they would miss me. I told them I would miss them too. The first few months of college were manageable. It was certainly challenging not seeing each other, but it was all right, though I noticed Carter was not behaving the same way toward me. Our conversations grew stale, and I would attempt to initiate discussions, but they often ignored me or ceased responding. Sometimes they would mock my autistic special interest unexpectedly, despite knowing that was a significant boundary for me. I repeatedly asked why this was occurring, and they claimed college was difficult. We fought more than ever, but eventually worked through it, or so I thought, until they broke up with me. Up until that point, Carter and I called each other practically every day, and since they were roommates with Alex, I would talk to them too. Sometimes, Bailey would join the calls, and I thoroughly enjoyed those moments. However, the moment Carter ended our relationship, there was a complete silence. I reached out via text to each of them, asking if they would still be my friends and support me, and they said yes. I understand that distance can make friendships challenging, but I had known them longer and believed they cared about me. Yet neither checked in on me. I confess, I was posting almost daily on Snapchat about my feelings and my distress, and they never said anything, even after viewing my stories. I had other friends who checked on me regularly. They would not respond unless I initiated contact. I tried multiple times to start unrelated conversations with Alex, hoping they would ask how I was doing, given that I thought they were my best friend, but nothing materialized. Bailey was heavily involved in clubs and very busy, so I wasn't too upset with them and tried not to impose. However, I did reach out once, and nothing came of it. I understand that being roommates introduces a new level of intimacy, and they were there for each other in ways I could not be physically present. Nonetheless, I did not expect them to simply drop me, especially after years of nearly daily communication, abruptly turning into silence, especially when I was experiencing an utterly terrible time. It did not seem like the behavior of friends. Eventually, I stopped trying to engage them in my life to see if they would say anything, but they did not. I felt sad but attempted to move on until Christmas when I saw the three of them hanging out together, which reopened old wounds. They never made an effort to see me over break, even though we were all back in town. Instead, they chose to spend time with my ex. I understand I would not have been available to plan Christmas gatherings with them at school, but it still felt wrong that they did not reach out. This confirmed for me that they were done with me, and I began to feel anxious and tearful daily, like a well-adjusted adult. I sought advice from my other friends on how to approach the situation, as it was making me deeply unhappy. They suggested I simply ask if they still wanted to be friends. I wished to express all my feelings for clarity, but my friends advised that would be too intimidating for them to respond to and suggested I keep it brief and expand as needed. I messaged Alex to ask how they felt about our friendship, and they responded positively, apologizing for not reaching out over break. I wanted to discuss the breakup, or for them to acknowledge it, since they never had since it occurred, but they did not. It felt as if nothing significant had happened, and I am still upset. I also have not spoken to Bailey, despite being troubled by their lack of communication as well. I am just feeling overwhelmed. It's stated in the rules that mental health support is not permitted, and I am not asking for that, but just for context, I am in a pretty bad place. I have trouble sleeping, and after not crying for about a month, I broke down, and all my emotions from the start of the breakup returned. I felt compelled to post this because I am unsure what else to do. The idea that Carter could be enjoying time with them right now, laughing as they once did with me, is truly heartbreaking. Alex is unaware of the hurtful and cruel things Carter said to me when we broke up. I briefly mentioned it on my private story, but the one time Alex did address my breakup, it was to express that they were offended by how I discussed my breakup on my private story, after which they never talked to me about it to provide emotional support, leaving me with no choice but to vent on my private Snapchat. So there it is. I am unsure what to do. I feel so isolated. 2 months ago, I was laughing, talking, and playing with all three of them daily. Now, there are days when I do not converse with anyone. The notifications on my phone have diminished significantly, perhaps by half or even more. Our group chat is inactive. I am currently experiencing the worst mental state I have faced since high school. I can hear my roommate chatting with their friends through the walls, which only makes me want to cry. I no longer have that, but my ex does. They maintain the friendships I introduced to them because they were lonely. I have been considering various options, blocking all of them, confronting them, or choosing not to confront them and continuing in misery, or even moving to Guatemala and changing my name. Please share your thoughts, especially regarding what I should say or if I should say anything at all. If you have questions or need more details, please ask, but I may withhold certain information for the sake of anonymity. I hope you understand. In summary, my best friend and my ex are roommates, which has resulted in my friend and their partner, who is also my friend, not communicating with me since the breakup, leading to a profound sense of depression. I am unsure how to address this or if it is even worth addressing at this point. Story 3. I don't know what to do anymore. M21 and F24. I am uncertain about what to do anymore. I am a 21-year-old male and have a girlfriend who is 24 years old. We are in a long-distance relationship. She has endured a very difficult life, dealing with childhood trauma and challenging family circumstances. This has resulted in her being mentally unstable. I am not claiming this. She has shared these details with me. I met her while playing Genshin, and I wanted to protect her and provide the happiness she has always deserved. This month marks 1 year of our relationship, but we have had some minor arguments, mainly due to her irritability and my defensiveness while trying to console her. By defensive, I mean that I acknowledge my mistakes and ask for her forgiveness, but she often denies it, and the cycle continues. Our most significant incident occurred just 1 week after our anniversary during a video call where we were joking and watching videos together. I noticed her lips were dry and jokingly commented that she resembled a grandmother, suggesting she should take care of her lips as diligently as she cares for her face, as they were cracking. Suddenly, she exploded with anger and hung up. She sent me the following message: "You know what? You should find someone more attractive and with better looks. Maybe I only attracted you with my physical intimacy, but now that you do not get that anymore, you are focusing on my overall appearance. Yes, I am lazy and I do not take care of myself much. You should find a prettier and more pleasant girl. There are plenty of others out there. Let's end our relationship. Am I so cheap to you now? I am no longer attractive. That is why you are speaking this way. It is my body. It is my choice. Do not make me regret everything because I already feel that way. Even if I do not take care of myself, I should not have to endure humiliation like this. A gentleman would never say such things." I said it humorously. Out of all the things to joke about, it had to be my appearance. I manipulated you into this relationship. It was me who forced you into it. I did not force anyone. You just agreed because you were scared. If you have male pride, do not even reach out to me. I responded that I was sorry for everything. Later, she called me, still upset and crying. I kept trying to explain my intentions. I never meant to hurt her feelings. She replied that I should keep my thoughts to myself since I cannot mend her broken heart. She suggested that I entertain myself by teasing others. Then a day later at night, she called me again in a panic. She worried that I might do something to harm myself. I answered her call, we talked, and I comforted her, managing to calm her down. Due to our previous argument and pent-up frustration, I expressed how her words had hurt me. However, I realized later that she believed I was using her words against her, knowing she was mentally unstable. I felt guilt and shame for my actions. I should have handled that differently. Subsequently, we grew closer again. When her family experienced their ups and downs, I supported her. However, I forgot how much she resented men. She has a strong dislike due to reading about the brutal treatment of women, and while I share her disdain for those men, she finds solace in BTS, which has aided her in dealing with her depression. Today, I jokingly commented about BTS, stating that we men have disowned them from being categorized as men, because I was envious of her passion for BTS and craved her affection. She responded with hostility, criticizing men and proclaiming that BTS is superior to us in every way. I believe she really prefers someone who respects and understands her, and I cannot be with a partner who desires a false persona. This relationship may currently be in limbo, but one day I do not want to hear her regret being with me. She referenced my previous messages where I stated, "You have to earn back my love and show me respect, but you should at least respect my love. It is acceptable if you do not respect me, I do." She continued, saying, "I do not want a man whom I have to instruct on what I like and enjoy doing. Although I am not ready to end things with you now, my mind keeps telling me to do so for my own happiness because men do not matter. My heart aches, I do not know whom to listen to. Why do we always end up in these arguments? If I recall, you put words in my mouth. However, when I reviewed your messages, you also joked about how I looked like a grandmother. I am exhausted." She expressed that in a few days, I might find her begging for my forgiveness, or I might forget it altogether. But I cannot be my usual self with you anymore, that is all I can say. I became frightened and began pleading for forgiveness, insisting that I cannot live without her. She countered that I can because I have family and friends, and I will find someone better who respects and understands me. She urged me to think carefully. Even if I return to you now, I would not be the same person. I do not want a life partner like that. I want to be open, carefree, and express my genuine self. But you deserve better. If I were to come back, it would be a superficial existence. That is all. Accept it or reject it.